Bobby Joe Long, nicknamed the classified ad rapist, preyed upon women with unthinkable brutality.
When he started his killing rampage, he had been a serial rapist for a good number of years.
Hi, I'm Nick from True Crime Uncut, and this week we're looking at the life and crimes of a man who struck fear across Tampa Bay in 1984. Bobby Joe Long raped over 50 women and murdered at least 10. He would have undoubtedly continued his reign of terror if it hadn't been for the remarkable actions of one young woman.
She knew how to survive, and she was very brave.
Robert Joseph Long was born on October the 14th, 1953 in Canova, West Virginia, to mother Luella and father Joe. But the couple divorced when Long was just 2 years old. Long's mother Luella had dreamed of moving to Florida one day, and in 1963 she finally upped sticks from West Virginia and moved to Miami in South Florida with her young son. As a child, Long suffered many injuries that caused periods of unconsciousness. Like many children, he had smaller accidents, like falling from a swing, but some were more serious, like being thrown from a horse or falling down the stairs. Aged just 7, Long had one of his most serious accidents when he was hit by a car. The incident left him with a deformed jaw and teeth.
He wore those scars for a long time, all of his life.
Despite working hard as a single mother and sole breadwinner, money was scarce, and Luella and her son were forced to live frugally. Consequently, Long was forced to share a bed with his mother. This situation certainly angered Long, and is also said to have been where his loathing of women began.
In Miami, she could not make a living, and so she had to get jobs in bars. He resented that because they were in a one-bedroom and he slept with her, and she brought men home, and he would have to be, part of that a lot of times. In other words, he would observe it.
Long was both highly embarrassed and critical of his mother. He hated the seedy bar she worked in and the risque outfits she wore. He was further humiliated due to a congenital condition called Klinefelter syndrome, which meant he had an extra female chromosome. As Long entered his adolescence, this extra X chromosome gave significant additional estrogen in his body, causing him to develop enlarged breast tissue. Long had surgery to remove the tissue when he was just 13 years old. However, the surgery didn't bring him the acceptance he had wanted. Instead, it left behind ugly scars and made him even more self-conscious about his body. Long was so ashamed, he always wore shirts even when swimming, hiding his scars for life. By waiting on tables in bars and restaurants, Luella was able to provide a better life for herself and her son. They moved into a small house on a quiet street in Hialeah, in the Miami suburbs. Whilst at Hialeah High School, Long met 13-year-old Cindy, and the two became close. But their relationship was never going to be straightforward. By his teens, Long was already angry, isolated, and controlling. His physical self-loathing and resentment towards his mother would prove to be a toxic combination.
He would always press to the limit with anything. If he was fishing, instead of a spear gun, he would have to take a gun down and shoot the shark right in the face just to see if he could do it. He just was impetuous, uncontrollable.
While Long didn't excel at school, he managed to get a job as an electrician's assistant when he finished high school, and at 19 years old, he used his newfound skills to join the US Army. On January the 25th, 1974, 20-year-old Long married his childhood sweetheart Cindy, but their happy ever after was very short-lived.
They were married in Hillsborough County Air Force Base Chapel. But in just a few months, he was transferred to MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa, and that's where the horrendous motorcycle accident occurred.
The horrific crash in March 1974 was another injury to add to the extensive list. Long's helmet disintegrated, and he suffered severe head trauma, permanently altering his brain.
It caused another brain damage. This manifested itself in the fact that he had insatiable sexual appetite.
Whilst recovering in hospital, medical staff noted that Long was masturbating 5 or 6 times a day. 5 months after the accident, Long returned home to his family, but he wasn't the same man. He was obsessed with sex and demanded his wife sleep with him at least twice a day. On August 23, 1974, Long was honourably discharged from the US Army on medical grounds. Later that same year, the couple welcomed their firstborn, a son, and in 1975 a daughter. Despite this joyous time in any family's life, it was shortly after the birth of their second child that Long started going out more often and not telling anyone where he was going. What nobody knew is that Long had a secret, sadistic hobby. Using a fake name, Long would respond to ads selling furniture, and if he discovered a woman was home alone, he'd arrive at a house, rape her at knife point and leave. The press dubbed the attacker the classified ad rapist. Police believe Long raped at least 50 women this way, but despite multiple arrests, there was no evidence to link him to the attacks, and Long never faced justice. During this time, his violent behaviour at home was also escalating, and in 1980, his wife filed for divorce. Long left the family home and moved to the Tampa Bay area. In 1984, in the fresh hunting grounds of Tampa Bay, Bobby Joe Long escalated from rapist to murderer, unleashing a horrifying killing spree across the area. Long preyed on vulnerable young women in Tampa's red light district. On May the 10th, 1984, an exotic dancer named Lana Long had arranged to meet her boyfriend after work and was walking along Nebraska Avenue, known locally as the Strip.
Bobby Joe Long came along in the car, and he was a very charismatic fella at that time. I cannot say that he was handsome or anything, but he was very attractive, I guess. And he stopped the car and asked her if she'd like a ride. And she got into the car.
Long raped Lana at knife point in his car, then dragged her into a field where he grotesquely posed her body. Lana was found 3 days later near East Bay Road. She was found lying face down, nude, her wrist tied behind her back, and a hangman's noose around her neck. On May the 26th, Long struck again. He picked up 22-year-old sex worker Michelle Sims from the Strip.
Michelle was a beauty queen at one time, and she was very pretty, but she was a drug addict, and so she did that to support her habit.
Michelle's body was found the following day by a construction worker in a remote area of Hillsborough County. Like Lana, she'd been raped, she was nude with her wrists bound behind her back, and she had a rope wrapped around her neck 3 times. Michelle's body also had multiple catastrophic stab wounds. On June the 8th, 22-year-old factory worker Elizabeth Loudenbach went for a walk from the trailer park where she lived, but never returned. Her mother reported her missing, but it would be more than 2 weeks before she would know what happened to her daughter. Elizabeth's body was found 10 miles away from her home. She'd been repeatedly raped and tortured before her body was dumped in an orange grove. As Long's violent streak grew more depraved, the Tampa community grew increasingly terrified, and it wasn't long before he struck again. On October the 7th, the body of 18-year-old sex worker Chanel Williams was found in the entrance of a cattle ranch near the Pasco-Hillsborough County line. Chanel had been raped, strangled, but unlike the others, she'd also been shot in the neck. It was still far from clear that one person had carried out all these murders. While there were similarities, there were also significant differences. At the same time, there was still no evidence linking Long to the murders. He remained free to kill again. Just 1 week after Chanel was discovered, police made another gruesome discovery. On October the 14th, 1984, the body of 28-year-old Karen Dinsfriend was found in an orange grove in Hillsborough County. Once a straight-A student, she had fallen into sex work to fund a drug habit. Like many of the other victims, Karen's wrists, legs and neck were bound.
When he picked her up, it was the same thing: torture, rape, and just a terrible end for such a promising young woman.
Then on October the 31st, police discovered a 6th body, that of 22-year-old sex worker Kimberly Hops. She'd been raped and strangled with the black cloth choker that she wore around her neck. The authorities desperately needed a break to catch the killer, but it was a teenager named Lisa McVeigh who would finally bring Bobby Joe Long's reign of terror to an end. At around 2 a.m. on November the 3rd, 17-year-old Lisa was cycling home from her job at a donut shop when she was pulled from her bike at gunpoint into Long's car. Blindfolded and forced to perform oral sex, Lisa was then driven to Long's apartment where she was held for 26 hours. Despite being blindfolded, Lisa's survival instincts were extraordinary. By carefully clenching and then relaxing her jaw, she was able to loosen the blindfold. This allowed her to see some of the details of where she was. Lisa made a mental list of everything she saw, including the word Magnum on the car dashboard. She also gained Long's trust enough that he allowed her to touch his face. She could feel he had a small moustache, pockmarks, and a snub nose. The next morning, Long did something unexpected and released Lisa, telling her he liked her too much to kill her. She was dropped off in a North Tampa parking lot near to where she lived at 4 a.m. But Bobby Joe Long didn't drive straight there. He decided to stop at an ATM on the way. Lisa took the moment her assailant was out of the car as an opportunity to peek out from her blindfold, learning not just the location of the bank, but the colour of the car. It was red, with red carpets inside. Stepping out of the car, Long ordered Lisa to wait 5 minutes before removing her blindfold. As soon as she was free, the 17-year-old ran home to her grandmother's house and convinced her to call the police. Lisa relayed all the details about her assailant that she could to detectives. She also recalled the ATM they'd stopped at that morning. Lisa's clothes were submitted to the FBI forensic lab. The net was closing in on Bobby Joe Long. Over the next 8 days, the remains of a further 2 victims were found. The body of 21-year-old student and exotic dancer Kim Swan was discovered in Hillsborough County. She'd been raped, bound and strangled, her body grossly posed. Soon after, the body of 18-year-old waitress Virginia Johnson was found in neighbouring Pasco County. On November the 13th, 1984, the police had the breakthrough they had so desperately been looking for. Forensic teams found red fibres on 7 of the 8 victims that matched fibres that had been discovered on the clothes Lisa McVeigh had been wearing during her abduction. Police could now connect Lisa's attacker to the other murders. Police began putting the evidence together, revealing that only a 1978 Dodge Magnum has the word Magnum on the dash. They began to look for owners of red Dodge Magnums, as well as searching through ATM transaction records. One of the names to appear on the list of potential suspects was Bobby Joe Long. A surveillance team was put on Long, following him everywhere he went. Eventually, they pulled him over in his car and took his picture under the guise of looking for a robbery suspect.
They just wanted to make sure they had crossed all the T's and dotted the I's. They had a lot on him. They had the red fibers, but they just wanted to make sure that he was the owner of that car and he was actually Bobby Joe Long. And he thought he was arrested at that time. I mean, he thought that was it. But they let him go, and he was astonished they let him go.
As Long's only surviving victim, law enforcement showed Lisa McVeigh the picture, and based on the physical features of his face she'd felt with her hands, she was able to positively identify Bobby Joe Long as her abductor. That same day, further information came in from the ATM records, showing that Long had used an ATM close to his apartment around 3 a.m. on the day that Lisa had been released. Lisa McVeigh's meticulous observations had led detectives straight to Bobby Joe Long, and on November the 16th, 1984, he was finally arrested.
And he went into a movie theater. Chuck Norris film was showing. They had surveillance officers all over the theater. You know, he didn't know that. And they knew indubitably that was the killer. And he comes out Dillinger style, you know, out of the theater. They arrest him right there.
When questioned about the abduction and rape of Lisa McVeigh, Long quickly and calmly confessed. His vehicle was seized and a sample of red carpet was immediately sent to the crime lab. Just hours later, the results were back. The fibres were an exact match to the ones found on Lisa's clothes and 7 of the 10 victims. Presented with this information, Bobby Joe Long confessed to the murders, and to the shock of law enforcement, he even revealed the location of a victim they weren't aware of, Vicky Elliott, a 21-year-old waitress. Just 6 days after his arrest, another body was found in rural Hillsborough County, that of 18-year-old sex worker Artis Wick. Forensic analysis showed she'd been dead for around 8 months, making her potentially one of Long's first victims. In total, Long confessed to killing 10 women in an 8-month spree, but it's believed his true victim count may be higher.
He was asked after his confessions, we could receive one phone call, and that was to Cindy. And he said, you know, all those girls you've been reading about murdered in the Tampa paper, I did them all.
On April the 22nd, 1985, in Dade City, Pasco County, Florida, Long was sentenced to death for the murder of Virginia Johnson. Then on September the 23rd, 1985, Long pleaded guilty to 8 counts of first-degree murder, 8 counts of kidnap, and 7 of sexual battery. He also pleaded guilty to the rape and kidnap of Lisa McVeigh. Long was given 4 99-year sentences, 28 life sentences, 1 5-year sentence, and 1 further death sentence for the murder of Michelle Sims. After multiple appeals, the original death sentence he received for the murder of Virginia Johnson was revoked after the Florida Supreme Court ruled that Long's confession was inadmissible. While both the FBI and the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office attribute the murder of artist Wick to Bobby Joe Long, he was never actually charged with her murder. This is likely for a number of reasons, including the fact that Long never confessed to murdering artists like he confessed to the others, but also the fact that Long was already facing the death penalty for the murder of Michelle Sims. Finally, on May the 23rd, 2019, at Florida State Prison, Bobby Joe Long was executed by lethal injection. He was 65 years old. Bobby Joe Long will forever be remembered as one of America's most notorious serial killers. His brutal spree of abductions, rapes and murders in 1984 left an indelible mark on Florida's history, not only because of the scale of violence, but because of the bravery of survivors like Lisa McVeigh, whose courage ultimately led to his capture. Thanks for checking out this video on the chilling crimes of Bobby Joe Long. For more true crime videos just like this, please subscribe to the channel and give us a thumbs up below. I'm Nick from True Crime Uncut. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.